My sister used my child to beg on the street and people from the orphanage saw it, and now I'm trying to get my child back. But they do not want to give the child back because they don't trust me and my sister is trying to make me feel guilty. My sister Rebecca moved in with me a few months ago. She was in one of her usual messes, no job, broke, nowhere to live. I thought, well, she's my sister, I'll help her out a bit. It's not like it was the first time she needed a place to stay. Anyway, I work long hours and I have a 5-year-old son, Liam. Rebecca said she'd help out around the house, maybe keep an eye on Liam when I wasn't home. I thought that was fair. She gets a roof over her head, I get some help. For the first few weeks everything seemed fine. She'd look after Liam, make lunch, even clean up a bit. But then things started to feel wrong. I noticed she was asking for money more often. Just a bit for food, she'd say, but the food never came. She wasn't looking for work either, just sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone all day. I should have known something was up, but I didn't think much of it. Until one day I got a call from Children's Services. So I'm at work and I get this call from a number I don't recognize. I almost didn't answer it, but something told me to pick up. The woman on the other end says she's from Children's Services and my stomach drops. She tells me there's been a report about Liam. Apparently someone had seen him with a woman, Rebecca, begging for money on the street. At first I was in shock. I thought, what are you talking about? Liam's at home. But no, they said Rebecca had taken him into town, made him sit on the pavement with her, and had him hold out a cup for change. I didn't even know what to say. I just kept thinking, this can't be happening. She wouldn't do that. But she did. The woman on the phone told me that Liam was now in temporary custody while they looked into the situation. I left work immediately. I was shaking so badly I could hardly drive. My sister had taken my son without telling me, used him to beg for money, and now I had to go to Children's Services to try and get him back. So when I went to Children's Services they told me everything that had happened. And let me tell you, it was much worse than I had ever imagined. At first I thought it was just a bad decision, but apparently Rebecca had been taking Liam around the city for weeks, using him to beg for money. She'd go to the busiest places, the city center, near shopping centers, even outside schools. She'd pretend to be poor and desperate, playing up the whole single mom thing, asking for spare change. But it didn't stop there. One of the workers told me that she and Liam had been hanging out near a park, asking people for money and pretending to be homeless. Someone even gave her a hotel room one night, thinking they were helping. But as soon as they left, Rebecca used it as an opportunity to ask more people for money, not caring that Liam was with her all the time. Then there was the time she took him to a street fair. She told people they were starving and needed money to get by, and went as far as to pretend they were going to sleep on the streets if they didn't get help. Some people even offered her food, but Rebecca refused, wanting cash instead. Some of them were kind enough to call a charity to help, but I had no idea any of this was happening. And it gets worse. One time a man got so angry with her that he called the police, accusing her of using Liam to scam people. She got into a huge fight with him, screaming at him in the middle of the street with Liam right there. I can't even imagine how scared he must have been. But it wasn't just that. One day she took Liam to a bus stop and sat with him asking people for change. A woman sitting nearby saw them and said it felt wrong. She later told the authorities that Rebecca had asked her for money, but when she refused, Rebecca started to attack her. I don't know exactly what happened, but from what I heard it got pretty intense. Liam was caught in the middle of it all, like he was just a pawn in Rebecca's game. I felt physically sick when I heard all this. How could I not know that this was happening? I trusted Rebecca to look after Liam, thinking she was just going through a difficult time, but instead she'd been using my son for weeks to get sympathy from strangers. At that point, I felt like everything I knew was a lie. Rebecca wasn't the sister I thought I knew. She was out there, dragging my son around like some kind of tool, using his innocence to get money. After hearing everything from the Children's Services, I couldn't even think straight. But then they told me something that almost broke me. Rebecca wasn't just begging Liam, She was taking him to restaurants and shops and pulling the same stunt. In one restaurant, she told the staff that Liam hadn't eaten for days. They gave her free meals for both of them. She even sat there laughing and chatting with the staff while my son ate his food quietly, probably not understanding what was going on. The manager only found out later that she had scammed them after someone recognized her and reported it to the police. Then there was the incident in the supermarket. Rebecca went to the customer service desk claiming that Liam was her son and that she'd lost her wallet. She managed to convince the clerk to let her take the groceries without paying, promising that she'd come back with the money. Of course, she never did. But what hit me the hardest was what happened outside the hospital. She made Liam sit on the curb with her while she told people she needed money for his medical bills. Can you believe that? Medical bills. She was using my son's name to guilt people into giving her money. Eventually a nurse came out and asked if they needed any help, but Rebecca just walked away, dragging Liam with her as if nothing had happened. When I heard all this, I was furious. Rebecca had no shame. None. She didn't care about Liam or the damage she was doing. All she cared about was getting what she wanted. Children's Services then told me something else. They'd received several complaints about Rebecca's behavior, and that's why they'd got involved. A woman from a charity even tried to follow Rebecca to help her, but Rebecca found out and left her, leaving Liam confused and crying. At this point the social worker said, "You have to understand, this situation raises serious concerns about Liam's safety. They didn't trust me anymore because I had let Rebecca stay with us. It didn't matter that I had no idea what she was doing, they saw it as negligence on my part." Hearing those words crushed me. I thought I was doing a good thing by helping my sister. I'd never imagined that she would do something like this. And now I was the one who had to pay the price. As if everything I'd been told wasn't bad enough, the social worker dropped another bombshell. Apparently, Rebecca hadn't stopped at begging and scamming. She'd gone further, and when I heard what she'd done, I was completely floored. It turns out that Rebecca was trying to pawn Liam's favorite toys. Not just any toys, but the ones he'd had since he was a baby: the stuffed dinosaur he couldn't sleep without and the remote control car he'd got for his birthday. She took them to a pawn shop, claiming she needed money for emergency expenses. But here's the thing, Liam was with her when she did it. He cried and begged her not to sell them, but Rebecca didn't care. The shopkeeper even told her to stop when Liam said, "Please don't sell my toys, Mummy." Mummy. She let him call her that to make the act more convincing. The owner refused to take the toys and later reported her to the police because the whole thing felt so wrong. But that wasn't the worst of it. The social worker also told me that Rebecca had lied about Liam being ill to get access to a church's charity fund. She stood in front of the congregation and cried, telling everyone that Liam had a rare disease and needed money for treatment. People gave her hundreds of dollars. One woman even offered to pay for a private doctor, but Rebecca refused, saying she just needed immediate cash. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was putting my son through all this, and she didn't even feel bad about it. Then came the part that really made me sick. The social worker said Rebecca had been caught trying to enroll Liam in a temporary childcare scheme under her name, pretending to be his mother. She told them she needed childcare so she could work, but she wasn't looking for work, she was just trying to free up her time so she could beg more. That's when I lost it. I couldn't keep quiet anymore. "She's crazy," I blurted out. "How is she still walking around free after all she's done?" The social worker just looked at me and said, "We're working on that, but right now our priority is to keep Liam safe." When I got home, Rebecca was sitting on the sofa eating crisps as if nothing had happened. I was bursting with anger after everything I had heard from social services. I told her straight out, "You are insane. After all this, you're not even going to apologize?" And she didn't even look up. "Relax, everything was fine. Liam wasn't hurt." I nearly exploded. "Everything was fine. You made up stories about my son being sick to get money out of people. You tried to sell his toys. People thought you were his mother." She just rolled her eyes. "And you're perfect? You're always at work. Someone had to look after him. At this point, I just exploded. Look after him? You didn't look after him, you used him for your own purposes. You did everything you could to take Liam away from us. And this is what you call helping? She got up from the couch and started to accuse me. What do you know? I was the one trying to find the money while you sat in your office thinking you were so right. We started shouting at each other. I couldn't take it anymore and told her to pack her things and leave. She started shouting back that she wasn't going anywhere because she had nowhere to go. I didn't care. You are not going to live here anymore. I won't let you near my son after what you've done. She slammed the door, but before she did she said, "You're going to regret kicking me out." And I just thought, thank God she's gone. Is that normal? If so, let's keep writing. After Rebecca slammed the door, the flat was silent, but I was still seething inside. She hadn't even realized what she'd done. To her, it was just another prank, and I was left alone with a shattered life. I sat down on the sofa and it hit me. Liam was still not home. Children's Services wanted to check before they could take him back. And it was all because of her. Because of their lies, their arrogance, and their total indifference. Then I remembered the moment they said they were not sure I could provide a safe environment for my son. I could barely contain myself then, and now I just burst into tears. One thought kept running through my mind: how did I ever let this happen? The next day I decided to take action. I went to the guardianship office with all the documents proving that I was Liam's mother. I showed them his birth certificate, photos of us, medical records, everything I could find. I knew I had to prove to them that I could protect my son and that this would never happen again. But it was not that easy. Children's Services said they had to complete their investigation first, and only then could I get Liam back. Until then, he would remain in temporary care. I walked out of that office feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. They had everything, proof that Liam was my son, proof that I could look after him, but it still wasn't enough. They said it could take weeks to complete their investigation, and until then Liam wouldn't be coming home. When I returned to the flat, it felt so empty. His toys were still scattered on the floor, his little shoes by the door, and it just hit me how much damage Rebecca had done. It wasn't just about the Children's Services case anymore. It was about how she'd taken advantage of me, of Liam, of our whole family dynamic. I didn't hear from Rebecca for the next few days. Part of me hoped she'd disappeared for good, but deep down I knew she wasn't done wreaking havoc. Sure enough, on the 4th day, I got a call from the police. Rebecca had been caught trying to pull off another scam. This time she was in a supermarket, using someone else's child. She'd convinced a single mom to let her borrow the child for what she said was a charity event. But when she started begging outside the store, people got suspicious and someone called the police. The officer on the phone asked me if I knew where Rebecca was, and I told them the truth. I had thrown her out and I didn't care where she went. I wanted nothing more to do with her. But then he said something that stopped me in my tracks. "Well, ma'am, she mentioned your name during the interrogation. She says you were involved in her activities." I couldn't believe it. She was trying to drag me down with her. Hearing that Rebecca had mentioned me during the interrogation sent a wave of anger through me. I couldn't believe the nerve. After all she'd done to ruin my life, now she was trying to pin her fraud on me? The officer explained that Rebecca had claimed that I had been aware of her actions and had even helped her financially. It was a complete lie, of course, but the fact that she had said it was enough to worry me. I knew they'd look into it, and I couldn't risk anything that would make it harder to get Liam back. I told the officer the truth, that Rebecca had been staying with me temporarily, but I had no idea what she was doing behind my back. He sounded sympathetic, but his tone made it clear that they'd still be investigating my side of the story. After I hung up, my head was spinning. I didn't even know how to process the fact that my own sister had turned on me like that. It wasn't just about her using Liam anymore. She was actively trying to destroy my reputation to save her own. That night I sat in my flat and thought about it all. I realized I'd been too soft on Rebecca for years. I'd always given her the benefit of the doubt, hoping she'd change, but she never did. Now her lies and selfishness had put me in the worst position of my life. The next morning I decided to meet a solicitor. If Rebecca wanted to drag me down, I was prepared to fight back. The lawyer assured me that as long as I had evidence to back up my claims like the documents I had given to the children's services, I would be fine. Still, it was hard not to worry. Then, just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, Rebecca turned up at my flat. Let me know when you're ready for the confrontation in part 10. Rebecca turning up at my flat was the last thing I expected or wanted. I opened the door and there she was, standing there as if nothing had happened. She didn't look guilty or ashamed, just annoyed, like I was the one who'd done something wrong. "What do you want?" I asked, my voice cold. "I need a place to stay," she said, like it was no big deal. "You know I've got nowhere else to go." I couldn't believe it. After everything she'd done using my son, lying to the police, dragging my name through the mud, she had the nerve to ask for help again. "You're kidding me, right?" I said, barely able to contain my anger. "You think I'm just going to let you back in here after you've ruined my life?" Rebecca shrugged like it wasn't a big deal. "I said I was sorry, okay? I screwed up, but you're my sister. Family sticks together." That was it. I couldn't take it anymore. "You think an apology will fix this? You used my son, Rebecca. You lied to children's services, to the police. You told them I was involved in your scams. Do you realize what you've done to me?" She tried to defend herself, saying she didn't mean for things to get so bad, that she was desperate, but I didn't buy it. I told her to leave, but then she said something that stopped me in my tracks. "If I go down, Emily, I'm taking you with me." The words chilled me. Rebecca wasn't just selfish, she was dangerous. She didn't care about anyone but herself, and now she was threatening me to save her own skin. That's when I decided I'd had enough. The next day I went to the police and lodged a formal complaint against her. I told them everything: how she'd taken my son without my permission, how she'd used him to scam people, and how she was trying to drag me into her mess. It wasn't an easy decision. As much as I hated Rebecca for what she'd done, she was still my sister. But I knew I couldn't let her get away with it anymore, especially if it meant protecting Liam. A few days later I received a call from the police. They'd found more evidence linking Rebecca to her scams and were pressing charges. Knowing that she could actually go to prison was a strange mixture of relief and guilt. When Rebecca found out, she came to see me again, but this time she was in tears. She begged me to drop the charges, saying she'd learned her lesson and would never do anything like that again. She even swore she'd leave town and never bother me again if I just let it go. For a moment I almost felt sorry for her. She looked so desperate, so frightened. But then I thought about Liam, about how scared and confused he must have been when she dragged him into her plans. I thought about how she'd lied to everyone, how she tried to ruin my reputation just to save herself. I told her I couldn't drop the charges, but I promised her one thing: if she took responsibility for what she'd done and apologized to everyone she'd hurt, I'd talk to the police and ask for leniency. It wasn't much, but it was the only kindness I could offer her after everything. To my surprise, Rebecca actually did it. She met the police and admitted everything. She apologized to the people she'd defrauded, to children's services, even to me. It wasn't perfect, she still had excuses for some of her actions, but it was the first time I'd seen her take responsibility for anything. The police decided to go easy on her, giving her community service and a hefty fine instead of jail time. It wasn't the punishment I'd hoped for, but it was something. After the dust settled, I worked hard to rebuild my life. Liam finally came home, and I promised him it would never happen again. Rebecca moved to another town, and we haven't spoken much since. She sends me texts now and then, saying she's sorry, but I keep my distance. I learned a lot from the whole mess. Sometimes family can hurt you in ways that no one else can. But at the end of the day, you have to protect the people who matter most, even if it means cutting ties with someone you once loved.